As time went along, you were beginning to struggle, everybody does. And fate or something brought you to Sir George Martin.
Yes.
And shortly after the Beatles broke up, you made arrangements with him.
Yeah.
Which, I take it, correct me if I'm wrong, was a watershed event for you.
We had done 3 albums basically on producing ourselves. The third one hadn't done well, and it became apparent, I think we need to bring a producer into this equation because it's a lot to write the songs, produce the songs, go out on the road and do 100 shows. So we made a list with George's name at the top, and we thought, we'll just start at the top and work our way down.
Why not take a swing at it?
Take a swing at it. Why not? We were not an unknown entity. We had 2 multi-platinum albums, #1 record. It wasn't wasn't completely unheard of. And he happened to be coming to L.A. because he was nominated for the score of Live and Let Die with Paul McCartney. We took a meeting, and he said, I'd love to, lads. And so we never got past the top of the list. We hooked up with George.
It was timing, it was everything once again. And I think the fact that we had this British connection, our sensibilities, our sense of humor, our food, whatever, we hit it off as friends, I think, almost immediately.
What did you learn about song craftsmanship from him?
Focus. George was immensely talented man in all facets. As you probably know, he was the arranger as well for a lot of those beautiful
You could sit down at the piano and play things.
Fantastic talent in all regards. But he openly said to us, I have to tell you, boys, I'm not really sure what a producer does. He says, I can tell you what I do, but the term is just such a wide term that it can be applied to anything. He said, all I ask is, can you come to London? Because I really can't be gone that long. It had taken us over 3 months to do the previous album, and Dewey and I, being both half English, love to come to London. We'll come. We got to London, and he said, now, he had a beautiful new facility. He was no longer with EMI. And he said, I've held 2 months. He said, I'm not saying we should be done, but let's just see how we go. I have 2 months held. And we recorded that album called Holiday in 13 days, start to finish, mixed, overdubbed. And when we were done, he said, I have to tell you, this can't possibly be a success. Nothing that easy could be a success. And it included Tin Man and Lonely People, some of our biggest hits.
We did a lot of woodshedding back home before we flew out there, so we had those songs as tight as we could.
But you say what you learned from George was focus.
Yeah. He was very good at tightening that, bringing it into focus.
Well, let's talk about some of the songs. I always like to do this because I do find people interested. I'm interested myself. Let's start with Ventura Highway. Dewey, you wrote it.
I wrote that one. That one and Horse with No Name I wrote in England during that first flush of writing, and everybody's got an idea and listen to this song and that, which is ironic because it was sort of rainy England, so I was trying to pull visions or
lived in
imagery.
California.
And I had lived in California. My dad had been stationed at Vandenberg Air Force Base, and it was about reliving a drive from Vandenberg Air Force Base down to L.A., on Highway 1, essentially 101 there. And I remembered, I pulled back like these 3D visions of the surf, and that's where I learned started to play the guitar in '63. Surf music, the surf bands, Dick Dale and the Safaris and the Ventures.
I understand it vicariously. You wanted to go to Southern California.
Exactly.
Driving with the surf on one side and the desert on the other.
You got it. Horse with No Name, the heat was hot. Plants and birds and rocks and things, the free wind blowing through your hair. So all that imagery was in my brain, so those 2 were written over there. And basically the rest of your songs, a bit of an homage to the...
Now, Jerry, you wrote Sister Golden Hair.
Yes.
Was written and sung by you.
Yes.
Song which did very, very well.
#1.
It was a #1 record.
#1, mate.
#1, mate.
You also did I Need You.
Yes. I Need You, I wrote when I was 16, and it was one of the first songs I wrote. It's a very simple ballad, but I had been playing piano since I was 3. I kind of knew my way around these instruments. I'd like to point out, since you've mentioned, or we've discussed Horse too, I think very early on, that established something with our group and our sound, whereas it was such an identifiable voice for Dewey singing Horse with No Name, we followed it up with a different lead singer, a completely different song structure.
Yeah.
So within the first two songs, we established that this was going to be a target we were going to move around.
It had
This
the
wasn't-
contrast.
Yes.
Yeah, it wasn't going to rest on anybody's shoulders. So I think in discussing these songs, that's a good point, that it didn't just fall on one guy. Come on, man, Sting and the Police or something, where it's just on your shoulders the whole time. Sister Golden Hair was from our 5th album. There's an homage in that one, too. The intro is a 12-string acoustic followed by some slide guitar. We were raised as Beatle fans, and George Harrison was a dear man, and we got to know him quite well. My Sweet Lord had the same kind of approach, the intro, the acoustic guitar, and the slide, and it was a bit of a nod to him.
When Dan Peek wrote Lonely People, my own feeling was he was trying to communicate some message about what he was going through at the time, and he wrote it.
Yeah.
Would you
Yeah.
agree with that? Or-
Well, we should mention that I think it's credited to he and his wife, Catherine, who
Catherine.
helped him with the lyrics. But there's a wonderful anecdote about that song. Actually, there's two, but one is that a DJ said, I'm going to play a song that I think must have the best opening line of any song in the world. This is for all the lonely people, thinking that life has passed them by. And I thought, well, that's a lovely observation. That's a beautiful thing. And another thing I remember about that tune, if you recall very well, the days of sign-off, when television stations, they ended, with the shots of the jets or the flag.
12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, that was
Exactly.
it.
The moonlight.
I was in Ohio somewhere, I think, and we were finished a show, and I turned on the TV to catch this sign-off, and they had put footage of our very proud astronauts walking on the moon, jumping in that almost slow motion. And they signed off with that.
Oh, rather than the Star Spangled Banner or
And
Flying
I
B-52.
thought, God, that's awesome. Really great.
Yeah, we still do that song, obviously. The Dan songs, we do several of his still in the show because, like I said, he's an instrumental part of that. When we were talking about longevity before and how long do you think a band would last, even when in the day when people would say, well, if we stay together 5 years, that'll be great. And probably our biggest songs, we're a 70s band, were during that first 5-6 years. We've had many successes, small and large, since then, but that was the concentrated time, So Dan's contributions are so important, and he was struggling even a little bit, drink from the silver cup. He definitely was struggling with some religious imagery there, I think.